convoy to the Supermax, transporting high-risk prisoners to ADX Florence. The convoy nobody saw. If you think you've seen everything about America's prison system, think again. Hit subscribe and don't blink, because what you're about to hear is as real as it gets. The sky above New Jersey that January morning looked like sheet metal, flat, gray, and cold. At 3:14 a.m., the runway lights of a restricted military airstrip flickered against the darkness as a Boeing 737 with no airline markings taxied to a stop. Its fuselage bore only a small Department of Justice insignia near the door, the kind that almost no one notices except the people who know what it means. Inside the aircraft sat one man whose name the press had whispered for years like a curse. Santiago El Gallo Ramirez, a cartel strategist whose hands had never touched the drugs, but whose orders had left bodies buried from Sonora to Chicago. After 2 mistrials, he had finally been convicted in a federal racketeering case in Manhattan. Now he was about to disappear into a place designed for men like him. What few people realize is that when a convict like Ramirez moves from federal courthouse to ADX Florence, it isn't just a prisoner transfer. It's a full-scale national security operation. Every leg of the trip, every road, every skyway is mapped like a military mission. 2 weeks earlier, the Bureau of Prisons Special Operations Response Team, SORT, had convened in a windowless conference room in Washington, D.C. Satellite photos of possible routes glowed on the screen. One team leader, a scar-shouldered veteran of the U.S. Marshals Service, tapped a pen on the map and said, "We're not just moving a prisoner. We're moving a target." The target wasn't just Ramirez. It was the credibility of the entire federal prison system. 5 years before, a high-risk inmate named Mark DeLuca, a former mob enforcer, had managed to slip out of a transport van in Kansas during a snowstorm, sparking a nationwide manhunt that embarrassed the Justice Department. Officials swore it would never happen again. So when Ramirez's appeal failed, the BOP triggered its most secretive protocol, Convoy Zero. Convoy Zero meant no public roads longer than 20 miles without alternate exits, no personnel on the detail without 10 years clearance, no paper maps, only encrypted GPS units. It also meant decoys. That night, while Ramirez sat shackled in his seat on the unmarked plane, 3 other convoys of armored buses rolled out of 3 different federal facilities in 3 different states, each carrying a hooded, handcuffed man who wasn't Ramirez at all. From the air or a roadside cell phone photo, any of them could have been the El Gallo transfer. The press never had a chance. Inside the 737, the atmosphere was less like a commercial flight and more like a floating cell block. Rows of metal-framed seats were bolted directly to the deck. Ramirez's wrists were cuffed to a waist chain. His ankles were shackled to a steel loop in the floor. 2 marshals sat across from him, hands resting near their sidearms, but eyes fixed on the prisoner's breathing. Behind them, a Bureau of Prisons medic checked vitals every 30 minutes. The only sound was the muted hum of the engines and the occasional crackle of encrypted radio. Ramirez tried to stare out of the porthole window, but all he saw was blackness and the faint shimmer of snow below. He thought about the last time he had seen daylight without bars, at the courthouse steps after sentencing. Protesters had shouted. Cameras had flashed. He had smiled. But when the van door slammed, he knew the performance was over. Now, thousands of feet above the ground, there were no cameras. Only the cold. Back in Washington, a different drama was unfolding. A young investigative journalist named Leah Starks had been digging for months into what she called the Black Highway, the secret network of federal prisoner transports. Her sources, retired marshals, a few defense attorneys, had told her about midnight flights, false manifests, even the use of decommissioned CIA facilities for layovers. The official line was always no comment. But that morning, her phone buzzed with a text from a burner number. "Your man's on the move." "Check Trenton." She threw on a coat, grabbed her camera, and headed for the highway. Leah wasn't chasing Ramirez's story for spectacle. Her brother had once been in a low-security federal prison after a nonviolent drug offense. He told her about buses where men vanished from one day to the next, about rumors of the Florence ghost who never came back. She wanted to know what happened between the sentencing and the cell door. How did the system decide who disappeared into the Supermax? What did those journeys look like, and what did they cost? In money, in dignity, in lives. By the time Leah reached the airstrip perimeter, the plane's engines were already spooling up. Through a chain-link fence topped with razor wire, she saw black SUVs idling under the sodium lights. Men in tactical gear loaded duffel bags. One of them glanced at her, then turned away. A gust of wind carried the smell of jet fuel and snow. She raised her camera just as the plane began to taxi, its registration number hidden under a magnetic panel. Click, click, 2 shots, then a hand on her shoulder. "You can't be here," a security officer said. "Leave now." She left, but not without the photos. Meanwhile, 1,700 miles away in Colorado, the night shift at ADX Florence prepared for a new arrival. Officially, no one knew who it was. Unofficially, rumors spread through the ranks: cartel boss, terrorist, mobster. The intake wing, a warren of reinforced concrete, steel doors, and motion sensors, was scrubbed and swept. A cell in Range 13, the deepest part of the special security unit, was stripped to bare essentials. Concrete bed, combo toilet sink, small slit window angled at the sky, so no horizon was visible. Everything was ready. In the cabin of the 737, Ramirez's thoughts drifted to betrayal. In the trial, 2 of his closest lieutenants had testified against him in exchange for lighter sentences. One of them, he suspected, was on a plane somewhere else right now, heading to a medium security facility, maybe even a witness protection program. Ramirez wasn't heading anywhere but down. He wondered if the government would try to flip him too. He almost laughed. There was nothing left to give. At 5:47 a.m., the plane landed at a secure airfield outside Pueblo. A convoy of black armored vans waited with engines running. Snow swirled under the floodlights. Ramirez was hustled down the steps in a heavy parka, chains clinking, hood pulled low. He caught a glimpse of the mountains, a jagged horizon of rock and ice. Then a gloved hand pressed his head down as he ducked into the van. Doors slammed. Locks clicked. Radios hissed. The convoy rolled out. Unbeknownst to Ramirez, Leah had boarded a commercial flight to Denver an hour after her airstrip encounter. She had a lead on a corrections officer willing to talk, off the record, about the Florence intake protocols. If she was lucky, she might intercept the convoy, or at least its echo. She didn't yet realize that someone inside the bureau was feeding her crumbs, and that the closer she got to the truth, the more dangerous her trail would become. By sunrise, the convoy was on Highway 50, cutting through a landscape of frozen fields and silent towns. Every intersection had been pre-scouted. Local police were told only that a federal operation was passing through. Helicopters circled high above. In the van, Ramirez sat chained to a bench, eyes closed. He thought about the legend of ADX Florence, the Alcatraz of the Rockies. Inmates there spent 22 hours a day in isolation. Windows the size of mail slots. Exercise alone in concrete cages. He had once ordered men killed with a word. Now he would be alone with his thoughts. At the same moment, in a small diner outside Cannon City, Leah flipped open her laptop. She zoomed in on the photos she had snapped at the New Jersey airstrip. The tail number was blurred, but partially visible. She cross-referenced it with a database of government aircraft maintained by aviation hobbyists. Her heart sped up. The number matched a DOJ transport plane last spotted at a facility near La Tuna, Texas. She scribbled notes. Could it be the Ramirez flight? If so, it was landing soon, if it hadn't already. 2 tables away, a man in a Carhartt jacket watched her over his coffee. He wasn't from around there. He wasn't a reporter either. He had been assigned to monitor civilian activity near the convoy route. His earpiece crackled. "She's here," he murmured. "Yeah." She's looking at the photos. A pause. Understood. He put down a 20, stood up, and walked out into the snow. Back on the highway, the convoy slowed as it approached the last security checkpoint before ADX. Armed guards in balaclavas stepped forward, scanning IDs under handheld lights. Spike strips lay across the road. Beyond the checkpoint rose the distant outline of the Supermax. Low, gray buildings ringed by perimeter fences and watchtowers like chess pieces on a board. Ramirez craned his neck for a glimpse. He saw only a flicker of razor wire and a hawk circling in the dawn. Inside ADX, the warden received a coded message, "Package inbound." He signed a document without looking up. For him, it was just another high-risk intake. But for Ramirez, it was the end of one life and the start of another, a life measured in inches of concrete and minutes of exercise alone. Leah, still unaware she was being tailed, typed out a quick blog post draft titled Convoy to the Supermax. She planned to publish after she had confirmation. She didn't know that by chasing the truth about Ramirez's transport, she was stepping into a web of secrecy that stretched far beyond one inmate, and that someone inside the system wanted her stopped. As the convoy turned off the public road onto the private access leading to the Supermax, a sudden burst of static filled the lead vehicle's radio. "All units, hold position," a voice ordered. The driver hit the brakes. Snow squealed under the tires. For a moment, the world was silent except for the hiss of wind. Then another voice came over the radio, lower, harder. "We've got a problem." The problem on the radio. Snowflakes drifted sideways under the beam of the convoy's headlights, glowing like sparks against the dark. Inside the lead van, the driver's knuckles went white on the wheel as the radio hissed again. "Repeat last transmission," he said. Silence, then a burst of static and a single word: intercept. The commander of the escort detail, a tall marshal named Heller with 20 years in the service, grabbed the MIC control. "This is Convoy 0. Clarify. Intercept who?" Again, nothing. In the second van, Santiago Ramirez sat chained and hooded, feeling the change in the vehicle's movement. The air got tighter. The ambush at Bravo Point. Snow fell heavier now, blanketing the way station like a shroud. The floodlights had been shot out, plunging the lot into an eerie half-dark where only headlights and muzzle flashes cut the gloom. The smell of hot engines, gun oil, and frost mixed into a metallic tang that burned the lungs. Marshal Heller crouched behind a concrete barrier, his radio pressed to his ear. "Control, this is Convoy 0 at Contingency Point Bravo," he hissed. "We under attack by multiple unmarked vehicles. Request immediate air support." Static, then a garbled reply. Too much interference. They were on their own. Inside the holding cell, Santiago Ramirez listened to the gunfire like a man listening to rain. Even through the reinforced walls he could hear the rhythm. Single shots, return fire, then the dull thump of something heavier. He sat on the concrete bench, chains on his wrists, hood discarded. His lips curved in a slow smile. Rescue or hit squad, he would know soon enough. Outside, agents returned fire in disciplined bursts. Dark figures moved between the attackers' vehicles, faces hidden by scarves. One of them carried a battering ram toward the building's side door. Heller spotted him through his scope and fired. The figure went down, dropping the ram in the snow. Another picked it up and kept moving. Leah Starks lay flat on the floor of her SUV on the hill above, camera propped against the window. Through the telephoto she caught the chaos below. Marshals in tactical gear, unmarked SUVs with doors flung open, men darting through snow and muzzle flashes like ghosts. Her heart hammered in her chest. She wasn't just filming a story anymore, she was in the middle of it. Her phone buzzed. The burner number again. "Get out now. This isn't a rescue." She swallowed hard. Whoever her source was, they knew more than she did. She slid into the driver's seat, turned the key. The engine coughed, then died. Dead battery? Or sabotage? She looked in the mirror and saw two men climbing the hill toward her vehicle. Down below, Heller barked orders. "Secondary perimeter. Keep them off the door." His agents formed a half-circle around the entrance to the holding cell. Bullets chipped concrete around them. One agent went down with a cry, clutching his shoulder. Another dragged him back inside. Inside the cell, Ramirez closed his eyes. He remembered the first time he had sent men to intercept a rival during a prison transfer in Mexico. Same cold, same fee. He had built his empire on moments like this. Now he was the commodity, and the players outside were betting his life. Leah grabbed her camera bag and slipped out the passenger door, sliding down the opposite side of the hill. Snow soaked her jeans instantly. She stumbled, caught herself on a frozen bush, kept moving. Behind her, voices shouted. A flashlight beam swept across the hilltop. She ducked lower, heart in her throat. He heard boots shift, safeties click off. Even without sight, he knew when a convoy's rhythm broke. He'd ordered enough ambushes in his life to recognize one forming. 3 miles ahead, an unmarked snowplow idled at an empty crossroads. Its blade was down, blocking the lane. No hazard lights. No driver visible. On a back road that usually saw only ranchers' trucks, it looked like a prop in a bad dream. Hella barked into his radio. Eyes front. What's our traffic on that plow? A helicopter's searchlight swung over the plow but caught nothing but snow. Inside the van, Ramirez smiled under his hood. Maybe this was it. Maybe the Sinaloa remnants had come for him after all. Or maybe the feds had staged a false threat to test his nerves. In his world, both were equally possible. He shifted his shoulders, chains clinking softly. 2 miles behind, in a rented SUV, Leah Starks was closing in. She had landed in Denver, rented the car, and driven all night following whispers from her correction source. Her contact had said only, "They'll take Route 50, before dawn." She didn't know the prisoner's name yet. All she knew was that a major transfer was happening, and if she caught even a glimpse, it would be the biggest story of her career. Leah slowed when she saw flashing caution signs ahead. Snowplow on road, the screen said. But there was no plow moving. Only a strange orange glow in the distance. She pulled off into a rest area and raised her long lens. Through the blowing snow she saw black vans, silhouettes of armed men, and the glint of rifles under floodlights. Her breath fogged the glass. "Oh my God," she whispered. She started shooting. Back at the convoy, Hella made the call. "We're taking Delta route," he ordered. The driver yanked the wheel, and the convoy swung left onto a narrow service road flanked by barbed wire fences. The snowplow receded behind them. But as they rounded the bend, the second van's engine coughed and died. "Unit 2 down," a voice snapped. "Engine failure." Hella cursed. Nothing about Convoy 0 was supposed to fail. Inside the dead van, Ramirez heard the change immediately. The shuddering stop, the hiss of brakes, the muttered curses of guards. He tilted his head under the hood, listening. Was this his window? He remembered stories of men snatched from custody in transit, of bribes and bullets and helicopters. But he also remembered the Bureau's decoys. For all he knew, he wasn't the real prize tonight. Maybe he was the decoy. In the cold, the convoy's formation broke. 2 SUVs swung around to form a perimeter. Agents stepped out, scanning the tree line with night vision goggles. The snowplow ahead flicked on its hazard lights at last, as if mocking them. Hella's radio crackled again, but this time the voice was clearer. Control to Convoy 0. Possible compromise. Proceed to Contingency Point Bravo. Hella didn't like the sound of that. Contingency Point Bravo was an old way station 10 miles off route, rarely used except in drills. He climbed into the second van to check on the package. Ramirez sat still, hooded, chains taut. "We're moving you," Hella said flatly. "Any trouble and you'll regret it." Ramirez chuckled. "Marshal," he said, his voice low and raspy. "I regret everything already." Leah, still on the shoulder, watched through her lens as the van shifted formation. One of them seemed to have stalled. Men clustered around it. She adjusted focus, snapping shot after shot. Her heart raced. She was close enough now to see frost on their sleeves. In her ear, a voice from her Bluetooth headset whispered, her correction source. "Get out of there," he said. "Now." "Why?" she whispered. "Because you're not the only one watching." A black pickup rolled slowly past her SUV, its driver obscured by tinted glass. For a second it paused, then kept going. Leah's stomach dropped. She started the engine. Hella ordered Ramirez transferred into an SUV. Chains rattled as agents half lifted, half pulled him out of the van and into the back seat of the heavier vehicle. The engine roared, tires spinning in snow. Behind them, another SUV fell in line. They accelerated toward the way station. At the way station, floodlights flicked on automatically as they approached. It was a low concrete building with a metal awning and 2 lanes for trucks. Empty, except for the echo of the wind. Hella ordered a full perimeter check. Inside, a single radio operator monitored encrypted channels. "We've swept the area," she reported. "All clear." But Hella had been doing this too long to believe in all clear. He motioned for the prisoner's hood to be lifted. Ramirez blinked under the harsh lights. His face looked carved from stone, but his eyes flickered at the sight of the mountains beyond. "Welcome to Colorado," Hella said. "Enjoy the view. It's the last you'll have for a while." In Leah's SUV, her phone buzzed again. Another message from the burner. "The way station is where they'll switch vehicles. Don't get too close." She glanced in the mirror. The black pickup was back, a few car lengths behind. She pressed the accelerator. Inside the way station, an unexpected sound cut through the hum of engines, a cell phone ringing. Everyone turned. One of the junior agents fumbled with his pocket. "Sorry," he muttered, silencing it. Hella's eyes narrowed. "We don't bring personal phones on Convoy 0, he snapped. The agent's face went pale. I didn't." Then whose phone was it? A single ringtone echoed again, this time from the storage closet near the rear of the building. Agents drew weapons, moving silently. Hella signaled 2 to flank. He yanked the door open. Inside, nothing but mops, a metal shelf, and a prepaid cell phone duct-taped under the shelf, ringing on speaker. As it stopped, a new voice filled the way station through a tiny speaker. "Marshal Hella," it said. "You're late." Everyone froze. Ramirez tilted his head, listening, a half-smile creeping onto his face. The voice continued. "You have something we want. Give him to us and no one gets hurt." The phone clicked off. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then Hella's radio burst with chatter, multiple vehicles approaching from East Access. Unmarked. Fast. Outside, engines roared. Leah crested the hill a quarter-mile away and saw headlights converging on the way station. Not just the convoys, but another set coming from the opposite direction. Her hands shook as she raised her camera. Through the telephoto lens, she caught a glimpse of muzzle flashes under the snow. "Oh God," she whispered. "This is a war." In the SUV, Ramirez felt the shift in the air like a predator smelling blood. He thought about escape, about what waited on the other side if these weren't feds but his own people. He also thought about betrayal. Was this a rescue or a hit? In his world, sometimes they were the same. Hella barked orders. "Form perimeter. Get him inside. Call control for air support." Agents scrambled, weapons drawn. Snow whipped across the lot, turning headlights into halos. The first unmarked vehicle slid to a stop, doors flying open. Dark figures spilled out. Leah ducked lower in her seat. Her camera kept rolling, red light blinking. She was capturing everything, a secret transport turned live ambush. She didn't yet realize that her own name was on a list, and that one of the men spilling from the unmarked cars had been looking for her, too. Inside the way station, Ramirez was hustled toward a reinforced door leading to an interior holding cell. He laughed softly. "Marshal," he said, "this is your problem, not mine." Hella shoved him inside, slamming the door. "Stay put," he snapped. Outside, a loudspeaker crackled. A distorted voice boomed through the snow. "Release the prisoner and step away." Hella's jaw tightened. "Not gonna happen," He muttered. He raised his rifle and signaled his team. Hold the line. Leah's camera caught the first shot, a single flash, then the shattering of a floodlight. Darkness fell over the way station. Engines revved. Boots pounded. The ambush had begun. On the ground, Heller lunged forward, grabbing Ramirez by the wrist just as his would-be rescuer tried to pull him into a van. Chains rattled. You're not going anywhere, Heller growled. The rescuer drew a pistol. A single shot cracked. The pistol clattered to the floor. A DHS sniper on the helicopter had fired. The rescuer went down. Ramirez stood still, eyes unreadable. Looks like I stay with you, he said softly. Heller cuffed him again, hands rough but steady. You don't get it, he said. You're not the headline tonight. By dawn, the way station was a cordon of flashing lights, ambulances, and snow churned to mud by boots and tires. Body bags lay under tarps. Helicopters ferried wounded agents out. In a corner of the lot, Leah watched from behind a barrier as Marshals led Ramirez into a reinforced vehicle bound at last for ADX Florence. Their eyes met briefly. She raised her camera. He gave a small, sardonic nod before the door closed. A senior DHS official approached Heller. We've secured the files, she said. But this leak, someone inside gave them the route. Heller stared at the snow-covered ground. Find out who, he said, before the next convoy rolls. Leah uploaded a final clip from her camera, hands still trembling. In her voiceover she would later record, she'd say, what I saw that night wasn't just a prisoner transport gone wrong. It was a glimpse into a hidden war over control of the system itself. A war fought in the shadows, on our highways, at 3 a.m. 2 weeks later, her expose would run on every major network. Viewers would see the grainy footage of black vans, snow, muzzle flashes, and a shackled man caught between freedom and a cell. The Justice Department would confirm an incident but decline to comment. Conspiracy theories would bloom online. Who wanted Ramirez moved? Who wanted the files erased? No one would answer. At ADX Florence, Santiago Ramirez will be placed in Range 13, cell window angled at the sky. 23 hours a day alone, 1 hour in a concrete exercise cage. No horizon, no cameras, no contact. But sometimes, in the hum of the ventilation, he thought he heard helicopter blades and felt snow under his boots. Leo would receive an unmarked envelope in the mail, a single photograph of a convoy at dawn, taken from high above, time-stamped weeks before her story. No, just a photo. Proof she wasn't done. And Marshal Heller, standing on a Colorado ridge at sunrise, would look at the highway below and know there would be another convoy, another package, another test. He'd tighten his gloves against the cold. Somewhere in the system, a leak was still bleeding. Somewhere out there, someone was still watching. If you thought this journey into the shadows of America's Supermax system was intense, you're not ready for what's coming next. Subscribe, because the next story might be even darker.